This is from Anganette Levy on Crime Fix.
Who survived the murders on King Road. She described the man she saw walking through the house that morning.
I saw his eyes and he saw me, but he didn't walk towards me and didn't see anything.
Welcome to Crime Fix. I'm Anganette Levy. We've talked a lot about Dylan Mortensen. A lot. She is the roommate who survived the murders on King Road and told police about the man in all black that she saw walking through the house. What Dylan told police she saw was so damaging to Bryan KOHBERGER'S case that his lawyers tried to get Judge Hippler to bar her from being able to describe KOHBERGER as having bushy eyebrows. KOHBERGER has now admitted to murdering Maddie Mogen, Kaylee Goncalves, Xana Kernodle, and Ethan Chapin back on November 13th of 2022. But before he pleaded guilty, he was planning to go to trial, and his lawyers wrote that they felt the bushy eyebrows description was as good as Dylan pointing a finger at him in court and saying, that was the guy. They said that even though Dylan said she couldn't say after seeing KOHBERGER'S photo after his arrest that he was the man in all black that she saw walking toward her in the house around 4 that morning. That's how worried KOHBERGER'S lawyers were about her testimony. They even pointed to how much she had been drinking the day before to try to discredit her. Imagine what they would have done had she testified at trial. KOHBERGER'S lawyers' efforts to have Dylan's bushy eyebrows description suppressed, it didn't fly. Dylan would have been allowed to testify about the man she saw in the house had the trial gone forward. Now we're seeing Dylan's first formal police interview after that 911 call. Last week, I showed you a 5-minute clip that appeared to have been recorded after the one I'm going to show you. But first, let's take a look at that body-worn camera footage from just before this interview.
All I heard was I heard her go upstairs. Like, okay, I'm going to go to sleep now because she's going upstairs.
And you heard who go upstairs?
Kaylee and the dog Murphy.
And upstairs to the very top?
You know, one of the things I just want to break in here and say is that we had conjectured as this case was going on, when we knew that Dylan Mortensen, from the probable cause affidavit, that she had seen the killer, the attacker, who was at that point unidentified. And we wondered, we sort of spitballed, as you would say, Phil, whether or not she could in fact identify this person. And when we realized that he was wearing all black and he was wearing a balaclava, I don't know if you could see that on the screen. That's a simulation of what he would have looked like from an AI image. And he's wearing all black and he's got that balaclava. But what she said, which really was a little bit of a worrying point for the defense, was that he had these bushy eyebrows. And we conjectured before he was caught, maybe she can identify the perpetrator. And maybe when they get him, when he gets arrested, they would show what's known as a photo array or a photo lineup to him. Apparently they didn't do that, because when she saw him, pictures of him arrested, she said, I really can't ID him or say that that's the same guy that I saw on the early morning hours of November 13th, 2022. Phil.
Yeah, Billy, I think in the interview, she says that basically the balaclava was covering the forehead and the mouth. So basically just the eyebrows were showing. And she does describe, she said, I definitely saw his eyes. But she goes on further, as you said, when he's arrested, to say that she couldn't say that the person that she saw in her hallway and BK were the same person, in fact, 100%, which is very understandable. Going back to the timeline that occurred with regard to when the police were called, in the beginning, if you go back and look at some of the first shows that we did on this case, I was very, so to speak, a red flag went up, in my opinion. I was very suspicious of it. How could there be an 8-hour time period that occurs between the time when we think the murders take place and the 911 calls, when there's other people in the house that obviously weren't hurt? So that was a point of contention for me. But when you hear Dylan Mortensen's words and some of the things that Mike pointed out earlier, you could clearly understand how she was extremely terrified I mean, she jumped up and locked her door. It was the middle of the night. She had some alcohol, some drinking. We don't know how intoxicated she was, or even if she was intoxicated. And I think what happened is, Bill, you brought it up. There's a defense mechanism that goes into place that maybe if I avoid this and I just freeze and I don't address it, it's going to go away and things are going to be okay. Perhaps that defense mechanism is what took over and caused the delay in calling 911. Obviously, she did fall asleep, but when she awoke, she started calling other people that lived in the house, not answering. Then she called an outside friend, and that's when that friend instructed her to immediately call 911, and that friend came to the house, and the horrible, horrible crime scene was discovered. So with that amount of time, it is very unusual, and it was a point of contention for me. I think you as well, Bill, when we were first doing coverage of this case. But I think now that we have from her mouth what was going on in her mind and what we know about the human responses to horrific trauma, we can understand why there was that delay.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's where her room is.
Okay.
And then all of a sudden I heard her walking up, I heard her scream, and she ran downstairs because she saw someone. That's what I'm pretty sure she said. Someone's here, and she screamed and just ran downstairs. And I called for her name, but I jumped up and locked my door because I was so scared. And then I heard someone in the bathroom, and I heard her crying, and I heard some guy say that you're going to be okay, I'm going to help you. And I kept calling her name, but she wasn't answering. And then I opened the door for a second, and I saw this guy, and he was not insanely tall, but he was wearing all black and like this mask that was just covering his forehead and his mouth. And I locked the door, and I called, and I didn't know what to do.
This was at 4
4
this
a.m.,
morning?
yes.
Okay.
And so then I just ran down to
You left here?
I left my room down to
Now, after officers arrived on scene, Dylan was taken to the Moscow Police Department, and Detective Lance Mowery took her into an interview room.
Are you here at the university? What house is that?
What do you mean?
Is that an apartment or a sorority?
It's a
You know, one of the things about interview and interrogation, of course, is the quicker you can get someone in to interview them and to put them at ease, get them a glass of water, a cup of coffee. If it's cold in the interview room, make them comfortable, get them a blanket or something like that. You got to make them feel comfortable. You got to realize their humanity had just been taken away from them by the slaughter of 4 of their friends, and the fact that Dylan Mortensen and her other friend, Bethany Funk, their lives were spared for some reason. And so many people that followed this case find that suspicious. I don't find that suspicious.